Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of In the Zone. Today, we're checking out a very spooky zone, Hauke Manor, Final Fantasy XIV. This is a very early dungeon that you get in FF14, but it is a spooky haunted mansion, basically, and thought it was perfect for a good Halloween episode of In the Zone. There's some really nice details here right away that you find. These various boxes that have been stacked up, as well as these different closets and chairs and things like that to try and block off this hallway because of the things that have moved in now. But you can still see some chairs that are here. None of the pictures, the frames that is, have pictures in them, are in this area, and then you can also find them discarded as well, which is nice. And then as you can see, the plants have died. There's also now these spooky gargoyle statues. You actually may recognize that as the boss from Zamile Darkhold, which is really interesting. And then over here we have some more knockdown chairs. This plant has been destroyed, and then of course both these plants are dead still. But that's kind of a thing. The sealed barrier, which you can't get through at the top of the stairwell. There's also the light from the stained glass windows coming in. And it gives a really nice ambiance. It's really cool. Of course, you can see the Manor Sentry up there keeping watch with his one eye. I decided to go with the Summoner for this, so we could be protected against the spookiness, Resident Evil style. This really cool door here that we can't currently go through is the symbol of the rose on it. Interesting, as you'll see when we get to later in the dungeon here. We're level 80. We're going to destroy everything that's in the way, so it's not like it's really a threat. We're going to go ahead and hit these things with some death and grab our keys, and that way we can check out every room. Normally I clear out every room before we record these, but I wanted to be able to actually take the time and show some of the mechanics of the doors and stuff like that too, and I would have had to have done all that before if I cleared them out first. Spider webs in the corner, get more frames with no pictures in them. Covered up couches with sheets. A candlestick knocked over on the floor, as well as some books. And what's really cool is you can actually see like gaps where the books would have been on the bookshelf as well. Would probably be more fitting if there weren't two of the exact same bookshelf side by side for that, but you know, it's fine. Interesting here too. You can't actually read the writing, but it's pretty cool that it's there. It looks like a timeline almost, which is definitely interesting. And then over here, a fireplace that is kind of dead, I guess you could say, as well. There are still firewood in the bottom. There's still firewood down there that you could burn, but no one's been burning anything in here for a while. Other than these spooky candles. Spooky candles are still burning. There we go. And then Garuda will clean up the rest of them. You have this, which I'm still not sure, like, is that supposed to be like a covered bird cage? Is that just supposed to be a light fixture that's been covered up? What is this? My first guess was a covered bird cage, but again, couldn't really get the camera to pan up under it so that I could find out how hard I tried. That's about as good as I get, but very interesting all the same. Then we have this large stack of more rubble and things like that to try and make sure that it's blocked off so nobody can get through there. Theoretically, again, in an attempt to drive off the horrors that are killing everyone. But look at how polished this floor is compared to... You can see the reflection of the light. This room would have been a very important room before Hauke Manor fell to ruin, you could assume. Music boxes, maybe? Chest, maybe? Something there? Another door. You can't actually go through this door, but it's all chained off. Really interesting. The chains aren't just attached to the door. They're actually driven into these wedges on the side of the door, which is cool. Got a lot. What would have been a table and swords laid out for weapons, as well as a gun and some shields. If you come here as part of the Halloween event, then you will see that the table is made up because the people that are putting on the Halloween event, the troop, have cleaned the place up, which I just think is really cool. Then, of course, there's a treasure chest on the corner. Get some stuff. But very interesting. Suits of armor. This is actually a leveling armor that you can get or Gladiator. Pretty. Don't mind my book. He's also just checking. Another interesting open book over here. It looks like it might have been a timeline as well. It's just the same book. We all know that, but still cool to wonder what would have been being written, you know? Another desk over here full of books and a small kitchen area with what would have been a dining area, I would assume, or maybe a workspace, but now is, of course, infested with bats and ghosts and ghouls and all that stuff. The key to the door from earlier. And then, of course, there is another key over there. Just take her out real quick. And this would have been either the butler's desk or the lady's desk, I'm assuming. But the lord's desk surely would have been on the second floor. Unless he just felt like being down here. But it definitely is somebody's desk that is important. Segmented off from the rest as it was before everything fell apart. The other side of that barricade. Use your key here. This door. And that lets you get to the other side of the big chained off door. I'm not really sure why the music room was chained off like that. But it's definitely interesting that the music room is chained. And it's chained on both sides, not just one. Which is odd. What was going on in here that it needed to be so secure? The cellos has been knocked over, unfortunately, but you can't play any of these. It'd be really cool if you could, or if they started playing when you walked in, but unfortunately, you cannot. Still, very odd, this music room was locked off the way that it was. I keep thinking, because I don't normally listen this closely, the sound of me moving through a dungeon, I keep thinking that the sound that I'm hearing is somebody above walking, when it's actually just the sound of Sigurd's steps on the pavement down there. Pain flare, that'll kill them all. Yep. And you normally don't explore all these rooms when you are just doing a regular clear of Hawk, but this would have been a storage room, it seems, with extra tables stacked up. Interesting that they didn't pull from these to try and barricade off the hallway, but maybe they ran out of time. Maybe they didn't have the chance to get over here. But very interesting nonetheless. And what appears to be more small chests of some kind, as well as some rope on the ground. Definitely interesting. And then, of course, we have another key. And by this key, we have what appear to be milk jugs or butter churners or something of the like. So this definitely screams storage room to me. Statues. And what you're supposed to do is go through that door right away. We're not going to do that just yet. We're going to go ahead and kill all the stuff that's in our way. We'll let Garuda clean up here. As we're going to go down and take a look at this other barricade that was put together. The other side of the first barricade. Kind of hastily put together as far as we can tell. But still definitely works. I mean, we can't get over there. But interesting that they didn't get all the stuff to there before they had to leave. Then we can use our last key to open this door, which is also not on the beaten path of the dungeon. And we find the other storage room, which would have been for soaps and cheeses and barley and other things that could keep and weren't needed in the regular rooms. But there's also this cool striped box that looks almost like a cake box. And like, what was in there, you know? What untold mysteries have been lost to Hauke Manor over the years? Would have been where wine is kept, of course. Would have been casks. Some of them have been rolled out and missing. It's just really interesting. There's also this design that could just be for flair or could be a particular design of Hauke Manor. We don't really see it anywhere else, so my assumption is just for flair. There's even this cool little step stool here to help you get the casks. The level of detail, that's what I really appreciate about video games, is when they put in the effort to get those little small details they didn't have to. Also interesting, there's a big spot of blood here. And we know from later in the dungeon that something was dragged down there. So it's interesting to me that this is where you get to see that it came from down that way. from the storage room when they dragged the body. We also get our first boss, the manager. Manor Claviger, not manager. But she won't be a threat at all. She's going to die really quickly, just like that. And that unlocks the door back to the start, which is really cool and would save you some trouble if you don't just use the return function later on. But let's take a look at the Claviger's room. It's another music room. It was not chained off in the way the other one was, but it did have this special rose door here to keep people out. And this has even more instruments in it. Theoretically, it would have been even more of a entertainment style room of like the parties would have been in here, you know? But no more parties anymore. Would be really cool to see ghosts dancing now. A hint. Then we use our green key on the ivy door, which was across from the rose door. And we get into this cellar area. Now, you can't just drop off the side there, and it's what most parties do nowadays, but we're going to actually go down the stairs here. Go ahead and get all of those. Painful. Oh, we didn't have to. Garuda killed them. And then, as you can see, shelves that have been wrecked, and everything on them has been knocked aside and discarded. Makes it seem like there might have been a scuffle on the way up here. This crossbeam was destroyed, as well as part of the walkway here, which would have connected up there. More shelving. Yep. I'm going to grab another key, and down here, as you can see, the damage from everything that fell. Just all kind of wrecked everywhere. Which makes you wonder, what happened down here specifically? Since a lot of the stuff up there was, you know, pretty intact still, other than just being shoved around. But as you can tell, this cellar took a little bit of a beating. So our next goal is to get into the Carnation door, for which we need the yellow key that we don't currently have. But we do have a bunch of keys that we're going to use. And by using them, we'll get access to where we need to go. So we'll hit the first one. And definitely interesting that they had a prison underneath this manor. That's not quite normal. Also, a hatch down here. No idea where that goes. I want to know so badly. No idea where that goes. But even the cellar down here didn't take kindly from whatever happened. There's damage to the walls, almost like a beast clawed the wall. The rocks have come out. There are cuffs down here. There are interesting, like, well-kept beds for the most part down here. But whatever was down here did, of course, either get out or died in its cell. We don't really see any damage to the cell door, so my assumption is it would have died in the cell. But what would have been kept down here? What were they doing at Hawk that led to this? There are weapons down here. An axe, a scythe, a hammer, another hammer, trident, and a spear. Over here is another hatch. Want to know what's down there? Probably death, destruction. End of the world. More damage done to the rubble, to the stone. If something carved its way through here. Here we have guillotines. They kept guillotines down here. So not only did they have cells where they were keeping prisoners, we see torture tools, and we see guillotines. Like, what was happening underneath the surface of Hauke Manor? And again, here, more torture tools. The rack to be able to stretch somebody out on. And then more blood. Even more blood. Makes you wonder what happened. The chains from before and now on the hallways. What was chained up in this hallway? What were they trying to contain in this hallway so that it wouldn't get away? Where are all these skeletons coming from, you know? Where's this water coming from? There's a lot of questions. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of answers. But I can definitely understand where people would say it's good that there's not a lot of answers because it leaves the mystery open, you know? We know just enough to know what Lady Amandine was doing down here was not good, and that it was all in service to her desire to be forever young and forever immortal. Why she communed with the Void Scent. That's why there's so many of them. Good job, Garuda. More casks. The yellow key that we need. Carnation door. I think we pretty much leave the regular cells behind. There's one more, but... And like, what's this? This would have been hanging from above. Is it full of rocks now because it was filled with rocks? Or because it like collapsed on top of the rocks and just surrounded a bunch of them over time as it shifted? We don't know! Love it! Table set up over here with chairs and plates where someone was having a meal. Beds. Rubble. And that rubble is stacked over to the side as if cleared away. And then, of course, yet another bloodstain. When we go through the Carnation door, we find the remains of someone quite important to the manor. Steward himself and the Jester. Stuck down here together in this prison. I do drop 2 treasure coffers when they... And then the bloody parchment that you need to speak the words to break the seal. Something underneath there. We don't know what. You can't really make out too much about it. But something underneath there. Then this cage here that seemingly doesn't even have a door anymore. This one here that has a spectral light glowing in it. More grating that shows water underneath. An actual, like, hatch again, or a drain of some sort. Weapons, more blood. What was going on down here, you know? A weighted system to be able to raise and drop the cage. Why was the steward of the manor down here? What did Lady Amandine do to him? So many questions. So few answers. Some people run back up. At this point, you can just teleport back up to the start. Save you a little bit of time. And then now we can use the parchment and unlock the last part of Hauke Manor. Over here is another barricade. Would have been able to get to the foyer, but you cannot anymore. Want to know what's over there, man. More blood. When you hurt him bad enough, that door opens, the lily door. Because he escapes. And that leads to the boss fight. But we're not going to do the boss fight yet, because I want to go this way. Take these guys out. Everything's been shaded with a purple glow. Up here, they're not even trying to hide this stuff. There's just a crystal ball out here with some fell candles. And then our last locked door. We had one last key for. Here we find everything is wrecked, as if someone went on a rage, or someone was angry, or got broken because of a monster or something. And you can see that the actual wallpaper has been peeled back to reveal stone, which is very interesting because it means that Hauke Manor had always been built above that cellar, which I guess was a dungeon at some point and wasn't a manor on its own to begin with. But this would have been a dining room for theoretically 2 people based on the beds. One of the beds has been trashed. If I had to guess, this would have been the Lord's bedroom on the 2nd floor, the steward with his office over here, his bed and the lady's bed, and then over here would have been where they ate. But, or at this middle table. But as you can see, that's all destroyed now. And here, yet again, we have another chain door that we cannot go through, unfortunately. Dark. You can drop down there. We're going to go ahead and drop down and just run back up. It just takes you back down to here. But there's nothing really worth doing that for. You can't jump to get a further distance to jump on the other side or anything. And then we'll run up and go take on Lady Amandine. I really love the looks of this dungeon. I think they did a really good job selling the idea of a haunted house. Again, that's the goal of In the Zone, is to show off some of the best that zones have ever been in video games. And Lady Amandine's Hauke Manor is definitely one of them. Like, look at this darkness effect over here, hiding this corner from you. The lit fireplace, but is dwarfed by the brightness of Lady Amandine's own chambers. Because she has taken over this place. It is hers now. No one else's. And it's just really nice to see the level of detail they went to. And speaking of details, this would have been the steward's office. Not his bedroom, but his actual office, theoretically. As this is the main hall of the dungeon once you've come up the stairs. And Lady Amandine has moved a bed in here and has thrown a sword into the chair that would be where the Lord, the steward, would have sat. And it's interesting that the sword has gone through. And I say Lord or steward because theoretically the Lord had died, and that's why the steward was taking over. And then you can see what Lady Amandine did to the steward. But very, very cool dungeon. Really love the atmosphere in here. So many fun little details. This would be her desk now, which at one point had a mirror, but it looks like at some point she got angry and broke the mirror, probably because of the beast that she had turned into. And then, of course, we see what would have been maybe perfume boxes or gifts scattered everywhere. And then the large bed and regal setup around the bed, and then behind the bed is just spider webs. Very, very cool place. As always, love In the Zone. One of my favorite series to work on for the channel. Until next time, I have been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. And remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Final Fantasy XIV has to offer.